You're such a loser. You almost had me. Good morning. It's another freezing day. I've just spent about an hour sorting out the animals, defrosting pipes, including getting those glue lamp beams bolted together. So first job, after coffee, is measuring, drilling, cutting and bolting. So as you can see above me, I've left the glue lamp beams more exposed because I haven't put the last two bits of our ceiling boards in yet. That means hopefully we can get a nice level drilling position to get the bolt nice and level. So for any of you who haven't been following the whole build, this is a twin unit cabin, a double wide or a twin unit or a residential lodge. Basically the two halves are on different chassis and both of them have to be independently structurally secure and sound. That means that we have a pair of glue lamps. These could be split and they would still remain buildings in their own right. So we want to put some bolts along there. It's not really doing anything much other than just holding these nice and neat and tight. So I picked up some coach bolts. These are going to be just the right length, I hope, so we don't need to do any cutting. This domed head is going to be recessed in just with a Forstner bit, just so it's a little bit neater. Otherwise, you know, when you pull these in tight, it kind of crushes the wood around it. So just by a few millimeters, set them in. We'll probably paint the heads as well, but I'm going to do that after they're in because otherwise I'll be knocking them and chipping paint off anyway. Also on the other end, where the washer and the nut is, we will recess that in big enough so we can get our socket in there as well, and then hopefully there'll be a feature, but a subtle feature rather than a giant big industrial bolt. We can't really get too high with the drill, so we've decided on just a single bolt but doing them every single beam, which is every 1.6 meters. Really just to pull them in so we don't have a gap here because that goes up to below our membrane. Having decided the height on the beam of where that bolt's going to go through, I transferred it round using the square. That way I was hoping that with the auger bit, a long auger bit on the drill, I'd be able to go through and get a nice level fixing. I even used the square against the drill bit to try and keep my drill level. As I mentioned, I started off with the Forstner bit first, and that made sure that I had a nice hole to recess the head into, and did a little bit of sanding around it because all of these beams are going to get sanded very soon. Right, almost there. Let me share with you a couple of pointers or errors that we made. I tried to get that nice neat Forstner bit hole, and I've done this before, stupidly. I knew first that I wanted my Forstner bit to be first, so then it gives me a little pilot for the auger bit to go through. But I did a nice accurate Forstner bit hole either side. What that means is you have to be absolutely spot on to be able to drill through that 200mm and come out bang centre, otherwise your nut or your head is going to be off. So learnt my lesson there, but fortunately managed to drill in from both sides and get it close enough so that everything ended up central. The other issue is I went too deep on the Forstner bit on the dome headed side of the bolt. What that meant is that the dome of the bolt here was going in too far, which meant our bolts were too long. I'd intentionally bought the right length bolts so that the threaded section would not protrude the other side. And it just didn't look quite right because it was sunk in and you were seeing too much the inside of the hole. So what we ended up doing is putting a couple of washers underneath the head. And of course that stops the square section of the bolt from biting into the wood, but there was still plenty of friction there that it held it and we could tighten up from the other side. That meant that on the other side up there, the bolt is not protruding through, it's pulled everything tight, and it still means that the head of the bolt is nice and neat and it hasn't crushed the visible wood, so it's still set inside the hole as planned. But there's one hole left, so we'll do that one right. So on this one we should have both issues corrected, because instead of drilling all the way through, I'll be able to drill, well, instead of having to drill from both sides, I'm going to drill all the way through and then put our Forster hole on the other side. And also I've only gone 2 or 3 millimeters deep here just to recess the head. That way we can leave the square part of the bolt to bite in as it should do. Don't know where it is. So we're a little bit off there, doesn't matter. Now we've got a tiny pinhole that we can start our Forster bit from the other side. If I drilled all the way through, then it wouldn't sit and it will probably wobble around. So all being well, we should be good this time. Pretty much flush and central. And the nuts recessed on the other side. Another job done.
Morning.
They honestly don't think these things through. Anyway, we get these feet on, the legs on, and we're done with that. Right, let's get the bits on now. So these need to go like there, and there, and then those little self-tapping screws go in through that bit. At this point, do we want to check that there's no screws coming through the bottom of the bath?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Shut up. Oh no.
You're such a loser. You almost had me. Right, there was a distinct lack of instructions with this, so we are going off their blog that they've got on their website. Anyway, so next thing to do is get these jobbies in.
What's the technical term?
It is, I'm not sure if these are quite, could have gone that way a little bit.
Slot.
Little feet go on there. When you put the weight on this, it's just going to go. We'll find the instructions in a minute. Right, so all of these are about halfway. Sometimes you have another foot in the middle, don't you? Ah! There we go, let's see what we did wrong.
We'll see what we did right.
Yep, I think we did okay. Right, the legs are on, which gives us a bit of stability, but obviously it's going to be wobbly. The other thing that can happen with a bath is, as you fill it, there's a lot of weight, and you can end up with the rim of the bath sagging a little bit, and if you've got a nice bead of silicone between that and your panelling or your tiling, then that's when the bath goes down 2 or 3 mil, and that's when you can start getting tiny little splits in the silicone. Obviously there's a bit of flex in silicone, but what we'll do is, once we've decided what height we want the bath and we're happy, I'll install a batten onto our studs, and then that means that when we fit it, the bath will be sat down on top of that, because underneath here there's some blocks anyway. This thing's flimsy as well, so we'll put some battens on the floor for it to push against. So it can come up a little bit, can't it? Alright, we are back on the bathroom today. Dad's up, so I'm trying to make the most of that, because I had lost all sorts of motivation, but we're back on it. We've got our panelling to go over here, so we're going to put a few more supports in. I brought out the studs with a bit of plasterboard so that they equaled this sheet, so we can carry it on over. But what I've done is just got some blocking here, so everything's flush. And then Dad's battening out this wall here, so that we've got our little service cavity like we've done around the rest of the build. So we've got to bring up the pipes for the mixer, shower, some plumbing along the bottom. So these are going to be about 300 or 400 apart to take our panelling. Good, so I'm going to pack out the other end with a little bit more plasterboard, then everything is smooth. Next run I'm going to do is down at the sort of height of the bath. One, so I've got plenty of support there for the panelling, but also so I can put a batten underneath the lip of the bath. Hey folks, you find me back in the bathroom. We are finally at a point where we can start getting this plumbing sorted. I've worked out the height of our sewage treatment plant, and that is meaning that we can go out, we're going to have to go out through the wall rather than going down because it's going to be an above ground system. And I've worked out where that hole is. Cut it out. I don't have a hole saw that big, so I've just done it by hand. Fairly straightforward, and I'll make sure that I use an airtight tape around that to make sure that we're all good. So there's two toilets going into the cabin. The one here in the main bathroom is a closed sort of back to wall one. Therefore we can't do any joining once it's fitted. So we're going to use this flexi adapter. It might not even need to be expanded once it's backed on, but we do need to join the two components, the toilet to the soil pipe, and then when we fit it, it should be all good. Now my cold feed for the cistern is coming up here as well, hidden in this little cavity behind the toilet. So I need to get a pipe up through and then put an isolator on it. Actually, I should probably read the instructions because there is a hole here, which might be an access hole to get to a valve. Maybe that's it. Let's have a look. Learn live as I read it. It's not actually an instruction. Alright, they're the plates that go on the floor to screw through. So that's what that bottom hole's for, like every other toilet. So maybe this little cap that goes in there maybe that's where you can get through and put a screwdriver through to shut the valve off. Because you're not going to be able to, if there's a flexi hose there. Alright, that should be all the way through on a little bit of a decline. So I'm going to do another soil pipe cut now. What I've decided, because our toilet in the next room is not on the outside wall, which is a bit of a pain, bad planning, I'm going to run the soil pipe at the back of the bath. There's plenty of space underneath there. Go through over there, similar height or same height, and all I have to do is we're going to have a bit of a boxed in section at the end of the bath there. I don't think there's any way I can avoid that. The only other option I could do is box in a section underneath the desk in the utility, but then it would have to go under the kitchen unit in there, and I don't think there's space. So that is the plan. Get the bath out, cut another one exactly the same height, because when they go through they're going to have elbows going down into the horizontal stack, horizontal run that comes all the way along and then into our sewage treatment system.
So as with most of our DIY videos lately, all sorts is going on in the same day, and sometimes we just have to down tools and finish chores. So most days either start or finish like this. Whilst I'm doing the bit of a bottle feed and all the other chores, I'll explain where we are with the plumbing. I've managed to get the cold feed all the way around the building now to the kitchen, the utility and to the two bathrooms. And finally, I've also made a start on our waste pipes. Now, it all really depends on the positioning of the sewage treatment plant, which should be arriving this week. That will enable me to work out the height and the drops and falls of all those pipes and work back from there. Otherwise, I'm just second guessing myself, even with all the CAD drawings that I've got being sent. Bathroom paneling is also arriving this week, so we can get that done, which means we can get the shower screen in, we can do the shower install, and hopefully the whole place is coming together fairly quickly from now on. But we'll see. It's all in the last 5%, and it's the painful drag of the DIY project, that last little bit that we've got to keep kind of crunching all of the hours of the day to get through, but we'll get there in the end. We'll leave it there. Thank you for watching. Remember, if you can, do it yourself, and we'll see you next time.